Mastermind, where we're going to share some of the best ideas that are out there. Glad to have all of you coming in from across the country. It is great to be with all of you this Friday, and we've got an amazing thing. Hey, I got to give you all a little heads up as everybody's starting to come in. Actually, Sam just told me that he said y'all for the first time just in the last week. And so, Sam, just want to say, come on over to the dark side. I mean, it's pretty comfortable over here. So, hey,
Y'all
listen,
are
as you guys are
influential.
coming
What
in,
can I say?
yeah, I know. That's what I'm hoping. That's just what rubs off on you is just the y'all. As you guys are coming in, drop in the chat where you're coming in from, if you don't mind. Love to see where everybody's coming in from this morning, and great to see everybody. St. George Island. Hey, Alan, good to see you, brother. Jacksonville, Roswell, Georgia. Let's see here. Princeton, Kansas City. Oh man, all over the country. Great to see everybody this morning, and we're gonna give it just one more minute as everybody's coming in now. Great to see everybody. California, Colorado, Nevada, San Diego. Congratulations on getting up this morning out in San Diego for this, because we're gonna have some great value for you this morning. So without further ado, I'd love to bring on my friend and just somebody who is super special to me, not just for all he does for the business, but just personally. David Childers, a CEO and president of Keeping Current Matters. And y'all, I will say this about David. That's the voice that I look to get an understanding of what's happening in the market. And so I'm super excited, David, to have you here this morning. A lot going on in the real estate business right now. So this is going to be a great morning to share some ideas. Hey, listen, guys, as we go through this, if you've got questions, drop them in to the chat. David will be answering some of those. We'll be going through some of those as they come available, as well as towards the end, we will have a Q&A if we've got some time there. And as always, Sam will jump in there. So, David, what is going on? How's everything going out there, and what are you seeing out there right now?
Man, it's fall right now. I was telling you, I saw the first comment, somebody from Richmond, Virginia, where I'm at, right outside, not too far from Washington, D.C., and it feels like fall this morning. I'll tell you that. It feels good out there. So grateful for that. Grateful to be on, Jimmy. There is a lot happening. Here's a question I'd ask as we get started, and maybe even in the chat here is folks from all over, kind of weighed in. We got people from all over the country. What are you seeing in your market? What's happening? Are you seeing more inventory? What are you seeing with price? What are you seeing with days on market? I'm going to give you a perspective of what is happening in this market, because I think, Jimmy, we started off this sort of planning for this time to say, hey, if people right now take their experience and they, combine it with market knowledge, it creates the ultimate client, not only confidence, but experience for them, right? It creates this sort of situation where people are like, okay, we feel confident moving forward in a market that there are a lot of questions on. So just looking through here, I see that more inventory, price reductions, longer on markets, homes ready to show well, selling fast, more inventory, see that a couple of times. Price reductions, Chris, see you there in Richmond. Price reductions, longer days on market. I think we're seeing that, and I'll kind of walk through some of that. But Jimmy, I think right now I've had the chance to over the last couple of weeks be out and about with a lot of different groups, and I will say this, and in being with different groups of agents, the sort of vibe or temperature feels different, right? We're kind of moving through what the last couple of years have been, and I think now is the time to prepare for 2026 and plan for it. And I know, Jimmy, with your team, y'all probably go for a lot of that business planning. A lot of teams will go through business planning, but that'd be maybe the question I would start off with this morning. And if you have something to write with, maybe pull something to write with out and take some notes, and I'll kind of point a couple of things out to you as we go through this. But here'd be the question that's been on my mind in the last couple of weeks as I'm with folks is this, and you're writing this down is kind of your perspective, is what is my plan to win in 2026? What's my plan right now? And look, it's October 24th. I don't think all of us have a plan for next year. I'm not saying that you have to, but I think now is the time you start thinking about that, right? And I think the other thing is starting to kind of go, okay, what do I want to commit myself to? Being out and a million different things that we talk about as far as activities, phone calls, videos, all the things. What do I want to do as this market starts to turn? Because what I'm going to show you is I do believe we're seeing signs, very good signs, that, for one, I'll just kind of give you the punchline. We will sell more homes next year. That's what forecasters are saying. So we've talked a lot about it, Jimmy, make that turn, and we've made a lot of turns in the business, but I think now is the time to start planning, because great preparation and planning combined with what's happening in the business, I believe, will pay off well. So that's what's on my mind. And if you have anything to add to that, do it. Otherwise, we'll hop in and get rolling.
Yeah, I think this is a great time for that preparation, and I do want to highlight what you said there, because I truly do believe it is that you can be prepared, but if you are not at a place where you're combining up-to-date professional opinions with your experience, it gets very difficult. And so what's happening right now, as I see it, is we continue to see that separation. I've always called this time of year the separation of season, because this is that time of year where here we are. We're just a few weeks out from really turning the corner towards Thanksgiving, towards Christmas, towards the holiday season. This is a time where a lot of people will coast. They either feel like they've had their year, and in reality, this is that time. Real estate working from a 60, 90-day time period. We're talking about the activities we're doing today. I mean, what are we, 70 days out from being at the end of the year to being the first of next year? The activities you do today are going to show up in 2026. So, man, I'm excited to see some of the, I've always joked about this. Superman has his cape, David Childers has the slides. I'm sure you got a few slides for us today. And so I'm excited to see those, and let's just jump right on into it.
That's for sure. That's for sure. So I'm going to share the slides, Jimmy. I'll get them over to you. You can get them out to everybody. Please use these, because there are a couple of things that I'll tell you right now, and a couple of ideas. There are two types of folks that are going to be in our business over the next 70 or so days. Two types. The first type are the ones that are going to phone it in, right? And this is the time of year that more times than not, folks phone it in. Then the other type that is going to be out there, be diligent, be having conversations, be doing the work to succeed. Now I will say this too, as I share my screen here, give you an idea of what to do. I would say over the next 70 days, the majority of us on this call are going to run into more people that we haven't seen in a while than any other time of the year, right? You got Thanksgiving coming up, we got Christmas, we got all the parties and everything. And the good news is you get to be with your family. That's the good news there. So some of us are excited about that, but but really, we're going to see more people when Jimmy, when you send these out, my coaching is take the ones that you want to sort of remember and put them on your phone. Put them on your phone, right? That way, when you're in a conversation with somebody, you can show somebody something and kind of say, hey, here's what I see happening in the market. And let me just give you a couple of things just from a perspective, what is happening in markets. We're talking about combining your experience, your market knowledge to create the ultimate client confidence. So what's the first thing we're seeing? Mortgage rates have decreased. Right. And it's kind of like, well, everybody knows that, David, and this or that. Well, when you pop this up, just this visual right here, this goes back to the beginning of January. And this just shows like they've come down. Right. And I'm going to show you what I believe is ahead. And, nobody knows. Nobody has a crystal ball for our business right now. But listen, you can look and kind of go, David, is that going to come true? Do you have a crystal ball? I don't. But I would compare and contrast the crystal ball versus the compass. I want to always be a compass. I want to guide my clients in the direction we're going, right? So started off bouncing around 7% on the 30-year fixed. Right now we sit, I didn't look this morning, but in the low sixes. The other thing that we know for sure that's happened, purchase applications are up. The green bar here is this year. The blue bar is last year. So as mortgage rates come down, more folks come in. That's a good thing. We all want to see people, buying more homes. And so that's a positive thing for our business. And I'm not sitting here gonna, spend all the time talking about the mortgage business or suggest that we need to become experts in that. But the third thing that I'll tell you, and we'll be on the lookout for it next year, stay connected to to keeping current matters. Fed Chair Powell said the central bank policymakers are open to another rate cut this month. Now, it's not mortgage rates. We know that. But he said this, and this is key. I want you to pay attention to this. He said, we may soon put a halt to quantitative tightening that's trimmed 2.2 trillion from the Fed's balance sheet over the past 3 years. So when, and I'll just kind of sidebar on here, maybe a lot of folks, I know we get folks on here that are well versed in this, but when mortgage rates dropped, the Federal Reserve was buying mortgage-backed securities. And the move they made is not only did they stop buying almost 3 years ago, they started selling, right? So not only did you have the lack of demand because the government's not active, they started to sell, and these kind of counteracted, and we saw the result in mortgage rates, right? They shot up. And now this is key. If they say, hey, look, we're going to stop selling mortgage-backed securities, that will help the mortgage business. So, but my only point is we're starting to see some technical signs. And I think, and I've told you this a couple of times, Jimmy, when we've sort of been talking about it, I think we'll go into next year with a slight breeze at our back. Now, nobody's calling for a, sort of this 60-mile-an-hour wind or anything like that. But listen, I'll take a slight breeze or no breeze versus the breeze coming straight at me. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And so I think right now, the reason let me go back to the question we started with. And Jimmy, I'll pause here for just a second. I know maybe somebody made a comment in there. I don't know. Now is the time to start planning, because we're starting to see the signals of good things happening in our business. So, you remember that old quote, the harder I work, the luckier I get. If you're going to work hard and you're going to have a plan, I at least want a little bit of help from the market. And I'm here to tell you, I think we're starting to see that right now.
I would completely agree. Hey, David, I think this is a great educational opportunity right here, because a lot of times we hear a lot of times our job is to take a complex something that people hear and they aren't really sure about, and talk to them about how it affects real estate. When we're talking about the quantitative tightening, where they're removing and they're starting to halt that, what I have kind of educated or I've said about that is think of it as just simple supply and demand. I mean, if we have the feds and we have that they are out there selling those mortgage products, well, now we're flooding the market with more, which ends up making it more difficult. This is a great opportunity. I had not seen this quote until you just put this up here, but this is another one of those where we're looking for what is the change that needs to happen to start seeing opportunities and seeing that just really feed into, like we were talking about, some of these tailwinds. So do you want to speak just a little more, if you don't mind, just go a little deeper on exactly what that looks like as far as the markets with them coming to a place where they stop selling those markets and how it will affect the market, if you don't mind.
Well, I think so I'll get into a little bit of my opinion about this. There are a lot of opinions. This gets into the privatization of should the federal government be involved in the housing market and all that. I am I probably lean more on the side of a pure market versus government involvement. But the reality is, since 2008, we have worked in a business that is heavily influenced by the federal government, right? They have the lever on rates via the Fed. And the way they do that is they participate in buying or selling mortgage-backed securities. So anytime the federal government comes in and they start buying, that drives rates down, right? They come in and they, imagine if you had a store and you had all these folks come in, you had one big buyer, it's going to drive rates down. You have an infinite supply of your product. Well, what they did 3 years ago is, even let's back up 5 years ago. Pandemic comes in. We're all like, hey, is the world going to end? What's going to happen? Everybody sort of has to go home. Can't work. If you worked in a restaurant or other things like that, I'm not saying it wasn't bad for us, but some folks it was really bad for, right? If you If you were in
Right.
a customer facing sort of role and you couldn't work and maybe you didn't get paid, that's when stimulus came in. We know the story of all that. Well, the one lever they have in the U.S. economy is the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve has two mandates. It's price stability, which is to fight inflation, and they have the mandate of maximum employment. We want to see people employed. And what they have tools and resources they use to influence both those things. So what they did in the pandemic is they jumped in and they said, we are going to buy mortgage-backed securities and drive the price of mortgages super low, lowest we've ever seen. I don't think we'll ever see mortgages that low again. And quite truthfully, the story of the pandemic will be down the road. I'm very confident in this, that that we will, say the Fed overcooked it, right? They kept rates too low, too long, overdrove it. That had a massive impact on inflation, and we know the story of that. Okay, that's my opinion. And so what they did when they kind of had to, kind of go, okay, we got to do something different. They made a policy adjustment. They started to raise the Fed funds rate, which is, when the Fed raises or lowers rates. And then they also said, and this kind of went, people watch the Fed going, we're going to raise rates or lower rates. They don't look at the comments. And the comment was, we're going to now start selling mortgage-backed securities. That's what they did almost 3 years ago. That's what had the massive impact on us. So when I saw this comment from Jerome Powell, I'm like, that's very interesting. He's going to stop that, which I would argue could have a bigger impact than what the Fed does with the Fed funds rate. Okay.
I would agree. I would agree.
So I think the simple way you explain this, and I'm not sitting here saying I'm a secondary mortgage market expert. Please don't hear me in that. But the simple explanation is, back when rates were low, the Fed was buying mortgage-backed securities. Over the last 3 years, they've been selling them, and they've said they're going to stop selling them. That will bode well for our business.
Yeah.
Does that help?
No, super helpful. Yeah, no, I think this is a great, when we're talking about, having your professional opinion. I mean, just what you showed there, predictions of more transactions, lower interest rates, more mortgage applications, and a change in Fed policy from what, in my opinion, and it sounds like yours as well, really what drove the rates dramatically higher at such a fast pace. So I think all of these are very, very positive for where we are and where we're headed going forward. So anyway, this is great, man.
Yeah, so I think that's my point in saying all that, just to set up the next few minutes together, is we have some good things at our back, right? And you and I talk about this a lot, Jimmy, in our business. We fought some headwinds in the last couple of years. Let's just be honest about it. If you're on the call and you've been in the business for however many number of years, in the last couple of years, you haven't thought about, am I going to continue to do this? I think a lot of us have gone, gosh, man, it's been hard. And, the volume of sales down, all those kinds of things. And I think we're turning the corner. So what's another dynamic in the market? We saw it in the comments before, rising inventory. Very interesting in our in the U.S. Housing market. Something interesting has happened in the last 5 months. This will look back to, again, the beginning of 2023. See kind of this upward trend of inventory. The last 5 months, we've had over 5 months of over 1 million active units for sale, 1 million homes in the U.S. housing market. That hasn't happened since the fall of 2019. So think about that, where we're at in inventory right now. And a lot of that, because the market slows down and all the mortgage stuff we just talked about, inventory rises. If I were to blow this inventory graph up, and I probably should add this to the presentation, kind of 2017, 18, 19 are here. We dip down in the COVID years, and now we're coming back up. We're not quite here, but we're real close. And I'll show you a couple of things that lead to that. But last 5 months, over 1 million active listings in this country. Hasn't happened since 2019. Big deal. More options for people. I know down in Florida's been a state where there's been a lot more inventory come on the market, and We probably live in one of the most disparate, bifurcated real estate markets of our lifetime. Up in the Northeast, they don't have enough inventory. Out West, they got plenty of inventory. The South's generally got plenty of inventory. But if I were to kind of break down, and I've used this graphic before, and maybe if you've been on a call that I've been on, I'll show it to you again because I think it's worth studying the way inventory comes to market each year. This is a look at what I always call the last 3 normal years in real estate: 2017, 2018, 2019. And this is how inventory kind of starts out here. If you see my cursor, kind of peaks sometime over the summer and trails off towards the end of the year. That's a normal year in real estate, right? Starts out January, kind of spring market, trails off towards the end of the year. And that's how it happens. Well, if you kind of take those away and say, well, what happened the last 5 years? This is a look at the actual inventory units over the last 5 years. Okay, so we know that we know inventory was up here, now it's down here. All the reasons, people jumping into the market, low mortgage rates, all of that. Well, just look at this visually, and I'll add in this year. There's the gray bars there at the top of 2017, 2018, 2019. There's the white line that is this year, the red line, which is the separating line, in my sort of opinion, of COVID 2020. And now we're coming back from that. It's a 5-year sort of journey in inventory reduction and depletion. We've run about, the green bar here is last year. We've run about 15 to 20% over last year throughout this year. Now, I've mentioned this before, Jimmy, when we've been together, when we kind of follow that out and we sort to say, where will we end up this year? It's somewhere where I've kind of highlighted that yellow circle. We will be in the neighborhood of where we wrapped up 2017, 2018, and 2019. So remember I said the last 3 normal years in real estate, we go through this debacle and COVID and all that. We just talked about the mortgage implication of that. And now here we are. My point is, we have a chance right now to step into interactions and conversations with clients of ours and convey to them the confidence we have of here's what's happening in real estate. Because a lot of people are kind of going, well, I hear the economy's not doing so well. I know prices went up dramatically in homes all over this country. I know that, mortgage rates have been high and people can't afford a home. Prices have got to come down, right? Or I don't want to buy at the top of the market, or all the objections that we face. We've got to be able to handle those. But this rise in inventory has definitely had an impact on the real estate market. I've used this graphic before. Just last month, 20% of listings, 19.9, I'll call it 20%, had a reduction in price, right? So sellers have to adjust and understand that. Buyers are like, hey, we get it. We're ready, right? We're ready for it. And just depending on where you're at, I know folks are all over the country on this call. 27% in Oregon, 26 in Colorado, 24, 22 in Texas, 24 in Arizona, 21 in Florida, where you're at there, Jimmy. You see all across the country. We didn't have price reductions back, a couple of years ago, but as inventory's risen, as mortgage rates have stayed higher for longer, we've seen that. And so I think right now, being able to educate specifically with something like this and communicating with people. We talked about the ultimate client experience. Every seller should realize that right now. I'm in the state of Virginia. I was saying, here in Richmond, 19%, again, 20%, 1 out of 5 homes had a price reduction. That's why price is so critically important, right? We've got to get the price right on a listing right now. And that's why I always say this, I always believe this: knowledge is power, knowledge is confidence in the market right now. I think if you will use this information, you will be able to make a difference. Jimmy, last time we were on a webinar together when I was in the airport that time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You remember that? I was having a little bit of a tough time connecting.
Yeah.
And you shared with me Olivia Sawyers. I don't know, she may even be on this call. She used one of these graphics texted it out to 40 of her clients, folks that she was working with. It happened to be a mortgage rate graphic. Got 19 responses, set 7 appointments, and wrote a contract on it. Just on being out there with, this is what's happening in the market, right? It's oftentimes that prompter to go, hey, let me show you something that I see happening right now that causes somebody to think, oh yeah, we do need to sort of get back on the ball on look at it.
Hey, David, let me mention that too. As we go through some of these, as we get towards the end, I'm going to give some suggestions on some specific things that you can post using these. David, we've got some people asking if they can get the slides. I guess when we get to the Q&A time, is it something you could send at the end to over to Sam, where he can just drop it in the comments section at the end? Or I don't know if we're going to have time or not, but if possible, stick around. We're going to do that. Also, I'm going to break down a couple of these ideas, because like David's talking about, there are specific things you can do with this knowledge to make it even more powerful by utilizing it. We'll talk about some of those stories as we get towards the end as well. So stick around for that.
Yeah, when we wrap up, I mean, immediately, Sam, I'll email it to you, and we can, if you can host it somewhere.
If we're still in Q&A, we can drop it right here in the comments even,
Yep, you got it. So no problem. No worries.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I think being active in that, the reality is, all areas are not created equal right now. The way you look at this is, again, staying on this inventory conversation. The blue bars there, every area of this country has grown in inventory over the last year. That's the blue bars: Midwest, Northeast, South, and West. If you take the West, for example, 21% inventory growth year over year, this blue bar. Now, the red or green bars are how much inventory is either ahead or below pandemic levels. So the West, again, let's use that example, is up 7.5% since the pandemic. So they've completely recovered. Okay. So if you're out West, you know that. If you're in the Northeast, still down almost 50% from where inventory was in the pandemic. So if we in 2019 had 100 homes for sale in the Northeast, we got 50 of them right now. Still dramatically down. Why this is important, and I always put this slide in here, because I think right now we're seeing more than ever folks move from one part of the country to another. That is the truth. So if I'm working with somebody coming from the West who's coming into the Northeast with an expectation that, hey, there are plenty of homes on the market and these sellers better get it right. Well, not if they're moving into the Northeast, or vice versa. Being able to educate them and say, hey, I study the market. I kind of watch what's going on. Here's how our market's different. Here's what you need to be prepared for as you make an offer, as you sell your home, or whatever the case is. Helps create that confidence. All of this kind of rolled up together. The bottom line is home price growth is moderating. Maybe a word I would use as well as decelerating. We see positive home price appreciation in this country still, but not at the rate that it was. So you go back to the beginning of 2024 right here, about 7% price appreciation. We're at about 2% right now. Annualized nationally, very, sort of flat price growth in homes across the country. I do not see a case nationally for prices to fall. There are markets where prices are coming down. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But what we do see is deceleration in pricing, given affordability, given the rise in inventory, all the factors that we know that weigh on folks. I even think the last, whatever it's been, several weeks of government shutdown causes people to, kind of go. It causes havoc in the, loan process for government loans and things like that. But it also causes people to go, we'll see what kind of happens, But this rise in inventory is definitely having an impact on price. Oh, by the way, 8 out of 10 potential sellers have used this graphic that Realtor.com survey they did, think they will get their asking price or more. So sellers and buyers probably right now a little bit, farther away. Jimmy, I don't know if you see that with your team or folks you're talking to right now, but being able to educate sellers, being able to educate buyers on what exactly is happening. We were at I was at an event, sat down to talk with somebody, and she said, first question I ask is somebody taking the time to educate you on what's happening in this market?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somebody taking the time. Maybe takes 5 or 10 minutes. She said 9 times out of 10, the answer to that is from the client is no. Nobody's taking the time to educate me on it. So, okay, I want to educate you on what's happening. I want to show you how those dynamics are impacting our market, whether prices are rising, prices are falling. I said, we probably live in one of the most differentiated and bifurcated, markets right now. About half of the 50 largest markets are rising in price. About half of them are falling in price. I don't think this is any cause for alarm, but definitely what is happening out there in the real estate business. So I'm going to pause for a second. I don't know if there's any comments in there, Jimmy, anything you want to say, but I'm going to move to what I believe is going to drive this market here, coming up in the forecast, and what I call the forecast in the future. So I can't see comments. I don't know. Let's see if there's.
That's okay. I will tell you that last slide was pretty powerful, because what it does is it gives you an idea that there is a difference in different markets across the country. And a lot of times what we have talked about in Florida, specifically in our local market, in 30A market, we have talked about that. We've almost kind of been the tip of the spear, so to speak. And so in other words, we sometimes are the first into maybe the increase in inventory. We're the first ones out as well. And so some of the times what you can see is notice these trends, especially the trends in your local area, and understand that typically you're going to see those trends continue and follow that. So in other words, sometimes you're in a market that lags a little bit with the national trends, and sometimes you're in one that leads those things. So just understanding your own market, I think, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think the other thing, Jimmy, and this might be a good script for us to work on, and you may even know how to come over. Somebody on the call may know that. Is what people often think is they look at the news and they hear, let's use an example based on what we have right here. Tampa, Florida, prices are down almost 7%. And it's said in such a way that it's like, look out, it's coming to a town near you. You know what I mean? Is what's happening in Florida going to affect me here in Virginia or in Texas or in Colorado, whatever it is? And we have to be able to communicate to people and say, this is information and these are dynamics in that market. We go to the other side. Cleveland, Ohio, I think, is the one it's on the far left there, 4.5% price appreciation. Our minds, whenever things happen, we don't naturally go to the best possible scenario. We go to like, all right, every home's going to go down in value, and here we go again, and whatever it is. We need to be able to bring the perspective of, okay, why is that happening? Well, it's happening in Florida because inventory is rising. What we have right here is we don't have enough inventory. We're in the Northeast, or whatever the dynamics are in our market.
Yeah. Hey, David, couple questions real quick. One is somebody was asking if this is, and I don't know whether we know or not, because this is coming from some different sources here, whether we're looking at average prices or median prices on some of these.
Which one is that for?
It was the one previous before this. Yes, home price growth is moderating.
This is, go ahead. This is FHFA data. In home price appreciation, seasonally adjusted. So let me tell you, I'd have to go into the report to tell you those exact things, but I don't know who asked the question. I was looking through here.
I will tell you that on the local level, obviously, we're always trying to get more to the median, because what can happen is, especially in a smaller snapshot, you can have a few large sales, because I can just tell you, like in our market, the upper end, we're having record numbers of sales of 10+ million on this beach that we have never had before. And so when you have less transactions and you have more of the higher volume, it can skew your averages a little bit. So just pay attention to that on the local level. Also, one thing that I would say, and someone was asking, is it safe to say it's a seller's market in the Northeast? I'll give you an insight. I was there maybe less than a month ago speaking to the Massachusetts Association of Realtors, and they called and asked, hey, could you speak on on how to generate listings in a low inventory environment? And listen, being in Florida, I had to like pull the book out and go, and blow the dust off because we hadn't seen that in a couple of years here. So understanding your local market and being able to communicate that. We also had someone asking about how do we get the local information for this information. David, you want to speak to that? And then I've got.
So let me show you a couple of things. So I took my slides out of presentation mode. You can see it here. I'm just looking over to the side of my other screen. In every KCM slide that's produced, if you go into the notes, which is right here below it, see, I'm kind of making it a little bit smaller, gives you the source report for all of this information. So you can go in there and find, is that average? Is it median? Is it whatever it is? You can go in and grab if they have it for your city, but we always link to the report in the notes section. So anything that you get from KCM, if you go into that notes section, not only can you grab the report, they may have if they built the data in such a way that you can pop your zip code in or you can pop your city in, you can grab it all right there. That's really, most people don't, I try to mention it on things that I'm doing, but if you go in there, you can answer those questions. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely. And Dave,
you got other questions?
Those slides, as you're getting those slides, let me just say this. Everybody's kind of asking about the slides. Yeah, we're going to get you these slides, but I will tell you, like, if you're not a member of KCM, I would highly suggest it, of Keeping Current Matters. It has been the source for me for, gosh, now a decade or more that I have used and utilized it when I was still in sales from a standpoint of gathering the information, sharing the information, using it in presentations. So yeah, we'll have these slides for you, but if you're asking where is all of this coming, and you're on this and you aren't familiar with, with Keeping Current Matters, check them out. I mean, it is one of the best resources in all of real estate, in my opinion. So all right, David,
appreciate that. Absolutely. So let's keep going. I know we're talking, I'll answer all those questions. We can hit them at the end. But let's talk about what's driving this market. I kind of maybe built this into a little bit of a presentation called the Fed, the forecast in the future. I believe the Fed is obviously has massive impact on our business. That really leads to where are we going? In the forecast, I'm going to share with you what folks are saying. Remember, crystal ball versus compass. I want to be a compass. I don't have a crystal ball. Right? A lot of people are like, well, is this right? What do all that? I get it. But what I want to try to do is orient people to what is true and what do we see around the corner, because that's what's going to lead to 2026. That's why I can come on here on the front end, Jimmy, and say, what's your plan to win? Because I start to see these signs that we're heading in a different direction. Meet it with a plan and you're good to go. Right. And I'm not saying that every one of us in the business has always had a plan. I certainly haven't. I'll be the first one to go, I haven't. But you always need somebody to tap you on the shoulder too and go, hey, guess what? It's time to put a plan together. It's time to, think about that. We've all gone, gosh, I appreciate that. And, and heading that direction. But what are the forecasts for the 30-year fixed mortgage rate? That is going to drive our business, going to bring more people in, all that. All these forecasters were already beating the Q1 forecast, and I get it. But here's what I want you to watch in this. I see and can say confidently, we are in a downward trending mortgage rate environment. Okay, now it's going to be based on incoming data, government shutdown, Federal Reserve, all this stuff. But I see these forecasters kind of going, okay, this is the direction we're heading. I believe, this is my opinion, I believe in the next 6 months, we could dip our toe in the fives in the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. And you better be ready. The number of people that are going to go, you know what, now we're ready and all of that. And there are a couple of technical signals that I see to make that statement that I'll show you. But if I graphed these, this is what this looks like graphically. Okay. And again, I bring this to say, I don't see anybody calling for rates to shoot through the floor. I don't see it. I see more this flat, gradual sort of, journey over the next year, bouncing around 6%. So somebody that's, waiting for rates to get back in the four before they buy, I got bad news for you, right? That day's not coming. And we shouldn't wish for that. That was a very unhealthy market. I don't think we'll see rates in the 2s and 3s like we saw in COVID, back several years ago. And hopefully everybody on the call understands that and gets that. But we see this market moving forward in what I'm going to call a better rate environment. We bounce around 6. That's a good thing. It helps affordability, and it helps more people come into the market. I think psychologically, if we do end up a day in the 5s or kind of bounce around there, I think it will get people kind of going, now might be the time. So what are we watching to be able to say that? I've showed this slide many, many times. If you followed KCM over the last 50 years, the 30-year mortgage rate and the 10-year treasury yield have moved in, sort of this symbiotic unison relationship. That's so you want to know where mortgage rates are heading. You watch the 10-year treasury. There's been an average spread of 176 basis points. So literally, if you took the mortgage rate in this, or the treasury yield, you added the 176 basis points on average, you would come up with the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. That's, this is going all the way back to the 70s. So we can confidently say, okay, we know what's driving it. We know what the indicators are. Well, we also know that over the last couple of years, that spread jumped up. And the spread, the easiest way I know how to communicate it is it's a measure of sort of fear in the market. A lot of times it's a measure of, what investors are seeing. But we also know over the last year, the spread has come down from 276 basis points to 230. Now, why am I confident in saying I think we'll dip our toe in the 5s? A couple of reasons for that. So let's back up. And this is the graphic example based on just a couple of days ago, where the 30-year fixed, where the treasury yield was just below 4 right now, 3.98. This is the spread, comes up with 6.22 on the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate. Now, what are forecasts for the treasury? The forecasts for the treasury are that it would come down. Now, we'll see if these hold true and bounce around 4. If we stay below 4 for a while, it'll be a good day. If we purely, from what's happening in the 10-year, not even, the Fed gives us a little bit of help, we would be, if we return to the normalized spread tomorrow, and I'm not saying we're going to, we'd be at 5.74% on the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. Mm-hmm. So we wouldn't even need any help from anywhere else. We just need the spread to come down, which, oh, by the way, it is. So again, don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what's going to happen there, but I can tell you I'm seeing what the Fed is saying. Go back to what I showed you on the front end, that little conversation we had about it. I see them lowering the Fed funds rate. I'm seeing things get more certain in this economy. And we've already seen a little bit of help on the mortgage rate, right? We started this year at 7. We're now at 6 and call it a quarter. That is a good thing for our business. Now is the time to plan for that to be ahead. Okay. This is a quote that probably a month or so old. So with the expectation of a Fed rate cut in their next meeting, this could be the beginning of a stronger housing market heading into the fall. I believe that the housing market right now in the fall is what we didn't get in the spring. Mm-hmm. We'll see more transactions, see rates come down, more purchase applications. And the bottom line is lower rates equal stronger buyer demand. And I'm not telling anybody on the call anything that they don't already know. We bounced around 7% right here. We get in the low 6s. We're bouncing around good and strong demand, right? And in our business, a lot of times, and all of us are this way, is what we think about the business dictates the action that we take, right? If it's, the economists, it's very interesting. Economists use this term called the wealth effect. You heard that, Jimmy? Or
yes.
The idea of the wealth effect. And what the principle of the wealth effect is, if you have a job and you know you're going to get a bonus, or the stock market's doing well or whatever, you're more apt to spend money, right? You're going to go to the mall and you're going to buy some stuff. You might buy a car, whatever it is. That's the wealth effect. Well, if you start to think, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep my job, I don't know if I'm going to sell a house next month, you start to go, might wait on that, right? We might wait on that purchase. Well, the same thing happens in our business. If I'm optimistic about what's ahead and what I'm seeing, I want to catch that, right? If I'm sort of going, well, I just don't see it and I'm not sure, and whatever's going to happen in this market, then my activity then reflects that. right? I want my activity to match an optimistic view. And again, I'm a big fan of looking at the reality. And I'm not here with a rose-colored glass look and saying, hey, everything's great. Don't worry about it. Just get out there and put a smile on your face. But I do think we have to look at what's happening, saying this belief that in our business, I can confidently say as we go into next year that better days are ahead. We will sell more homes. Homes will continue to rise in price. If you look at home price forecasts for next year, they're very flat. I don't see home prices coming down nationally. The average 1.8% of those that are producing forecasts right now. We'll get a lot more of those in the next few weeks in between here and the end of the year. People that are saying, well, I'll just wait a couple years because I see this market coming down in price. Based on what? This is a 5-year look at home prices. Shows them going up each year. You could literally take this graphic right here, Jimmy, and you could do a green screen. And you could go, hey, the average home right now in this neighborhood or this city or whatever is this amount. If you wait 5 years to buy it, it's going to cost this based on what folks are saying about this market right now. That's the truth, right? And if it's the right thing for somebody to wait, I'm not saying they shouldn't wait or anything like that. But these are the facts where people go, well, I'll just wait till everything comes down. Well, you might be waiting in the wrong direction. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Mike Frattantoni from the NBA said we expect home sales to increase in 26. Combination of lower mortgage rates, where we talked about that, not just this sort of assumption. We definitely see the technical signals. Flat home prices, that's a good thing for affordability, and that brings more people in the market. If you look at total home sales right now, 2024, this is total new and existing, call it, just almost 4.8. 25 projected this year will be over 4.8. 5.2 is the projection, consensus projection right now for next year. So again, not blowing the doors off, but doing more, and I believe those that are prepared for it and those that have a plan. And I'll kind of wrap up on this. This is the next 90 days, just visually. We got November, December, January, right? Start off the year and kind of go, okay, what's ahead for 2026? My money, Jimmy, is that we're going to start to see a little bit more favorable, and I'll pull this down, a little bit more favorable conditions in the real estate market based on mortgage rates, based on inventory, based on all of these factors that I see coming together that help folks go out and be able to do something that maybe they put that decision off over the last couple of years.
Yeah, that'd be great. Hey, David, I know we've got a bunch of questions. Before we do that, do you mind just really quick? I've got some things I was going to go over. Emailing Sam these slides. Again, you can find everything on Keeping Current Matters. I would encourage you to check them out if you are not already a member. Like I say, it's been go-to for me. A couple of things in way that you can use these as David's doing that, and then we'll get to some questions. One of the things that I would say is you noticed some of the slides, and as David, when he comes back up, one of the slides that is on Keeping Current Matters we didn't see here was one that talked about the fact that we saw the average monthly payment go down by $250 in the last 3 months. This is a slide that Keeping Current Matters had that actually David mentioned it. Olivia Sawyer utilized.
Yeah.
What she did with this is she took that slide, she texted that out to her clients who had been who had stopped searching when rates were up, and just talked to them about the affordability opportunity that had changed and were they interested. And that led to just a number of opportunities for her. And so these are the ways we can do this. Also, social media wise, take these. David mentioned the green screen video explaining some of these things to everyone. We'll have this replay. If you miss any of this or you want to go back and understand this a little better, just go over to the YouTube channel, go to the live tab, and that's where all of these are. And that way you can take a look and replay this. But David, this make sense to you as far as utilizing some of that? And I don't know whether you've gotten a chance yet to send that over to Sam, but
I just did. Yeah, Sam, you have it in your email box. Let me say a couple things. Yeah, we highlighted that. I did a green screen with that graphic. You can go on Instagram right now and find it. I think that is huge. The average mortgage payment down $350 since May of this year. We have the graphic for it. You'll see it there. You can grab it, do a green screen, post that. I guarantee you it will get people interacting. The other one that has, you can, anybody watching can go on Instagram right now and see it. You can go to my Instagram or KCM's or both. I did a video on the reality that the most recent number is that 57%. I'm sorry, let me back up. The number of people that have pulled their home off the market is 57% higher right now than it was the same time last year. So the number of people that canceled the listing, said we don't want to sell our home anymore, is 57% higher. Now, the reason I did that video is we had this graphic, and I sort of said, okay, why is that? And I believe it's a couple of there are a couple of reasons for it. What I just broke down, rising inventory and price is an issue, right? So they likely have the home overpriced. They're like, it's not selling, we're pulling it off the market. Second thing, in most markets, it's taking longer to sell a home today. Days on market is rising. So they're going, well, you know what? We didn't sell it in 2 hours for 50 times what we bought it for. We don't want to sell it anymore. And so they're having that reaction. The reason I say that is that video took off and people were using it, but everybody on this call can do the same thing. And when you become the source of knowledge, and I've mentioned this a lot of times, Jimmy, as we've talked and been at different events, people get the information they trust from us these days, not turning on the news. I've used that fact that this last presidential election cycle is the first election cycle where podcasters had more influence than national media. So we can now become that. We can go, hey, everybody, right here in wherever we're out in Dallas, Texas, I want to show you a fact about people pulling their homes off the market, and I want to tell you why that is. And that's huge, because that then gives somebody the ability to go, oh, I get what's going on, right? Because I'm connected to Jimmy. Jimmy shows me what's happening in the real estate market. And so I'm better equipped that way. And oh, by the way, if we create, remember we talked about your expertise combined with market knowledge is the ultimate client experience. Then when somebody goes, hey, we're thinking about selling their home, friend to friend, they're like, you know what, you got to call Jimmy. Jimmy knows what's going on in this market.
Yeah. Hey, and I'm going to give another super practical way that they can do this as well. That slide, and I'm going to use this. This is from our buddy Jimmy Mackin, over at Listing Leads, and also there is a discount over there if you do quick wins. They've got it half off the first month. But Jimmy took this information. So like the slide that you saw David did on mortgage rates, showing how they are lower than they have been, using that as a green screen backdrop, and then the text that Jimmy put together, which he's about as good as anybody I've ever seen at putting these things together, just basically said, rates are at their lowest level since last October. I'm already seeing increased buyer activity. If they drop again, do you want me to let you know right away? You could do this as a survey on an Instagram story. You could do this as a post and just comment down below. Follow up with those folks that comment yes, and it gives you a great opportunity to utilize the data that David's providing, the slides that Keeping Current Matter is providing, and post something today that will absolutely get you more. When we first started, David said that. He said, hey, look, this is the time to have more real estate related conversations. This is what leads to the opportunities. Well, this is a way to use the data to show yourself as that resource David's talking about, provide a professional some professional information, and also have the ability to set yourself apart to have some of those real estate related conversations, to prompt them in that way. So David, Sam, if you don't mind, jump in. I know there's been some questions coming through. If you don't mind, I'll let you anything that jumped out as far as questions that we wanted to address.
Absolutely. Hey, David, do you mind sharing your slides again and show people where they'll find the source of all of that content? Once again, I think that's important. You put it both on the slide on many of them, what that source is, but you also provide those links, as you mentioned before. So I think that so much credibility.
So let me share here real quick. So let's take an example like this. Y'all see that slide?
Yep.
Yes.
So this is the one where I showed you 5 months in a row, over 1 million active units in this country. Well, if you want to go grab this for your area or go pull this, you can go to these, see these links down here. I'll try to move this up. I can't see the line here. There it is. So see, in the bottom of every slide, there's a notes section. In that notes section, there is a link that you can pop in a browser and go to for any of this information. Right here's another link. Trying to figure out, there's one right here. All of these have links where you can kind of go, and I saw there was does the forecast take into account the Fed shutdown? I can't. This was updated as of the 14th. I know we've got some more recent ones in there, the 21st. They are updating these constantly, and you can read their perspective on all of that. So it's in the notes section, right in the individual slide.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, and there's the link for the slide deck is in the chat. So if you go there, I just put it in there, and I'll put it in a few more times as we're moving along. Okay, let's go to Chantal. Says, although the listing prices may have been higher this past couple of months, do they actually sell for the price or reduce? So that's when you were talking about price reductions specifically.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, everybody, right, can go into their MLS and say, okay, where are we trending right now, right? Jimmy, I mean, you probably have a better perspective on how to do that well than I do.
Yeah, and I will tell you, if you're having trouble with this, man, what did we do before we had artificial intelligence? Literally just go into ChatGPT if you're using Flex MLS or whatever your MLS system is, and just say, how do I track the number of price reductions over the last 3 months in Flex MLS, for instance. It will tell you how to do this. So if you're wondering how to do some of this stuff, don't be afraid to ask AI. It's amazing how it will direct you exactly what you can do to find those details as well. Also, your local MLS. Don't hesitate to reach out, because if I tried to explain one, there's multiple options out there. But I would say absolutely. And this is that there is a portion of this that is, it's great that David, that his team, that Keeping Current Matters provides us with this on the national level. But let me say this. If you want to achieve true greatness in your local area, you will take this to the next level and identify and understand these numbers at your super local level, even down to the neighborhood level. And you're going to be able to explain that and do that in a way that's just going to set you apart from everyone. What we do a lot of times is we'll take the national information that we get from David, and we'll take that and then we will contrast it. David, when you were here about a month and a half ago with our agents, you took the national information, then you showed the local information to show the contrast there, which helps to be able to explain the story and really show everyone and educate them on what's happening locally as compared to the news they're hearing.
We did that, when we were together. What I would do Saturday morning, whenever it is, one morning, get a cup of coffee, look at what KCM is publishing, and I'd go into my MLS and I'd grab the same stuff. Even if you grabbed one or two things, you could do it in half an hour and published it the following week or, coming up. That's how I'd do it, right? I'd go, hey, here's what nationally we know inventory is rising right here where we're at. We know it's falling or it's maintaining or whatever it is, that way I can apply my local expertise.
Right. Hey, we did have someone ask a little to go back and just kind of explain again the spread differential, and I'll let you do that. But basically, on where we are today, maybe when that started to happen, where there was a separation, and so that we can kind of discuss about this is where we are right now, and kind of what in a normal situation would be at 1.75. Here we are now at 2.24. So what does that look like? If you could just maybe explain that one more time. We had a couple questions on that.
Yeah. So let me share this real quick. I know we're gonna get up on the top of the hour. I know folks will have to leave, but I'll hang around for as long as we need. So I'm just gonna leave it open here. I'm not in presentation mode. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right. So we know over the last 50 years, the 10-year treasury and the 30-year fixed mortgage rate move together. Okay, so when the 10-year treasury goes up, mortgage rates are going up, vice versa. When it starts to fall, mortgage rates are falling. The average difference between them, what they call the spread, is 176 basis points. The way financially that would read is 1.76%. Okay, so literally, if you took the 10-year and that number, you added 1.76%, you're going to fall historically right where the 30-year fixed mortgage rate is. Well, kind of a lot of things enter the market, and that spread has jumped up over the last couple of years. You see right here to 259 basis points. So historically, I know what it was 170. I know things are a little bit out of whack. It jumps up to 259. I expect as things become more known, it starts to come down, right? So let's go back to the beginning of 23. It's 276 to whatever this was a week or two ago, 2.16. So I already see the spread coming down. That's a good thing for our business. Okay. Now, why is this important? This right here on the right is a look at the mortgage rate today. Well, it's actually as of 10/14. The treasury yield 4.14, spread 2.17. If you took that same scenario and we were back to the normal spread here of 176, we'd already be in the fives. We'd already be there. Okay. So it's a fairly, I'm gonna pull this down for a second. It's a fairly technical topic, but you can go on Facebook today and hear people talking about the spread and the mortgage rate between the 10-year treasury. I wouldn't say try to become an expert on this, but what I would say is look at forecasters. What are they saying? And this gives you a little bit of confidence. And why are they saying it right now?
Yeah. This is the reason why. And, that when I'm checking financials first thing in the morning, the first thing I look at is the 10-year treasury yield, because it historically, obviously, and we see it. I mean, it moves in unison. So when we see it now drop down, I didn't check it this morning, but when we see it end a couple of days this week, south of 4%, that really does bode well for us. And so from that standpoint, that's the reason why I like to watch that as well. Sam, any other questions that jumped out right now?
Yeah, David, some of the forecasts, do they take into consideration the Fed rate, the Fed shutdown rather, or is that just going to cause a temporary blip in the radar? Or if it is extended longer term, what can we expect to see?
Well, yes, I would say forecasters all take that into account. The question is, what will the impact be? Listen, a federal government shutdown, in my opinion, all it is political bickering and wrangling. In the short term, it seems that it's been beneficial to us. I've got a good buddy of mine that works for the federal government. It's been furloughed. We want to see all our friends and people that work for the federal government have jobs and not go through any craziness like that. But I don't know that this, it's the federal government shutdown has come to be sort of expected, right? I mean, there's nobody on, kind of looking at Washington going, yeah, they got it all together. I mean, it's like, it's how they're operating now. You know what I mean? And so I don't see that as short term. It could actually benefit us because it causes a little bit of, confusion and chaos, and markets don't like that. They like security. But I wouldn't anticipate it has a massive impact going forward.
And David, with you being a stone's throw away from our nation's capital, do you have any insight on possible capital gains, the increase of the tax exemption? That's really impacting a lot of sellers right now who have just a ton of equity.
I do have a perspective on that. It has nothing to do with my geographic location. I'm not a political person. I think they're all crooked. If you want to know my honest opinion,
you're not inside the Beltway very much, are you?
David?
Not spend a lot of time inside the Beltway.
Yeah, exactly. There's two things you want to sort of educate yourself on. One is capital gains, positions. I don't know anything on that. The other one is 1031 exchange. I think both of those things play into our business. And there's been this talk that 1031 could go away. I will tell you, it is the last man standing relative to 1031. 1031 was true in agriculture. It was true in aviation. It's true in real estate. All the others have been done away with. We're the last one that it's existing on. So if it went away, I wouldn't be shocked. Do I think capital gains? I can tell you this: the government's always going to try to figure out a way to generate money, and they're always going to look at a way that they feel like is a loophole and try to stop it. And so I hope it doesn't go away, but I don't have anything other than that.
How about that homeowner exemption? Right now we've got the 500 to 200, 250 rather. And so I know there's been talk about that going up to possibly $1 million, but
I can tell you this: if they were to do that, they would piss off everybody. I mean, it would be political suicide, right? I mean, that's the truth of it. I don't
They
think
were to eliminate it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They did away with it. That would be
Yeah.
Political.
But increasing those exemption rates, right? So right now, especially out here in the West, right?
Yeah.
Some people are sitting on $1 million, $1.5 million in equity, but that 500K for a married couple exemption causes people to
Certainly
think
over the
twice.
last couple of years, right? That's been blown out of the water. I don't have any insider baseball on that, but I think here's what I think about this entire subject. The way that Washington works is these politicians run towards burning buildings. And burning buildings are the issues that we face as Americans. And I believe housing is one of those right now. I fully expect in the next election cycle, housing to be a major issue because people are pissed off. That's the truth, right? People feel like they can't buy a home. They can't afford to buy a home. The exemption doesn't even cover what, our home is appreciated in value. So I do think you will see politicians come in. And what do they do every time? I'm going to solve it. None of them ever solve it, but that's what they do, right? And so I do think you will see activity and action in those areas coming up in the next. And oh, by the way, here's the good news. Election cycles now start 2 years before the election. So that'll start up next year. You have that coming for you. So that's the good news.
Right. Yeah. Let me ask David this, as far as like, you've been around a lot of agents, you've been around a lot of people.
Yeah.
Obviously, you talked a little bit about kind of the slides here. And is there a specific topic? We talked about expired listings at the beginning of the year. I mean, we're just seeing that continue. Is there anything in particular where, you're hearing from agents that a lot of the questions are where you see some of those opportunities?
I think the biggest issue, I was in last week in Reno, Nevada at an event, and the biggest thing that came up is the disconnect between buyers and sellers.
Right.
And all that is an education piece, right? Anybody thinking about selling a home right now, I want to educate them on days on market, on inventory, on price. Anything thinking about buying a home, I want to educate them on this, here are the dynamics impacting our market. I will guarantee you, if you publish something, like we just talked about that Olivia did on the drop in payment, you'll get people's attention. You publish something or talk about home prices, you'll get people's attention. Like these are like throwing red meat out, and so I think right now those hot button topics and they're topics that we could talk about all the time. The thing that I would tell you is what I wouldn't do is I wouldn't fall prey to what's called the curse of knowledge. And the curse of knowledge is just because I understand something, I expect you to understand it, Jimmy. Or just because I've talked about it, I think everybody's got it. You could literally, going into the end of the year, you could do a weekly update on mortgage rates, and it would be impactful for those that you serve. You say, hey, it's here. It's the 24th of October, and I'm doing your monthly or your weekly mortgage update. Here's where mortgage rates, here's what you can buy, here's what the payment is. You can do that every week, and people are like, I'm tuned in. That's important to me,
Right.
And I think those topics right now are the most important ones that people, are sort of tuned into.
Yeah. Speaking on that buyer side, David, I think like what you're talking about, obviously affordability is such a big issue. So from
Biggest
that
issue.
standpoint, yeah, I agree. And so speaking to that and basically speaking to the pain point, and offering information for where people can make the best decision for them. The other thing, when you showed the slide where it was talking about, I think it was, it varied everywhere, but it's like 21% had price reductions. Was that correct?
19.9. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
19.9% had price reductions. This is another topic. I would show that up and just basically say, if you're a buyer that has been frustrated with the inability to find affordability, you've got mortgage rates you can speak on, but you could also speak on the fact that sellers in most areas, again, know your local area, in most areas are more negotiable, which helps us from that standpoint. So from that standpoint, I think, like you say, David, speak to the pain points right now. And the pain points are the affordability. Mortgage rates are trending in the correct direction to help those buyers. Sellers are, in most places, becoming more negotiable, which plays to the affordability. These are all things that you can speak to. In our market,
Yeah.
insurance is a big topic. Whatever it is in your area, whether it's property taxes, insurance, whatever it is, speaking to those and relating them to affordability and how it makes it more attractive for buyers is great for buyers. On the seller side, speaking to how these affect them as sellers is also a great way to do this. So I would just encourage you, as you mentioned, David, speak to the pain points, find those, and I mean, like you said, you could literally, I mean, if you did this would be such a great 90-day challenge to speak at least once a week on affordability. And this is very few things that, I'm not a big gambler, but I would bet that you will absolutely have one of your best first quarters if you become the person and the resource in your local market for speaking to affordability and educating people on affordability.
For sure. And just being consistent on it. Now, I flashed up that graphic that you were talking about. I would take this graphic right now and I would do a green screen with it. And I would do something like this. I'd say, hey, I was studying price reductions all over the country right now. And in September, here's an interesting thing. 20% of the homes on the market had to reduce their price because it was overpriced. First point.
Correct.
Second point, right here where we're at, pick your state. Mine is Virginia. The number was 19%. Here is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing days on market increase. I'm seeing inventory increase. Here's the reason I say that. If you're thinking about selling, you have to be, in line on your price or whatever you're thinking. If you're thinking about buying, this is good news. And I would knock that video out, and you will see people, interact with you and see folks fired up.
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy, that's a perfect segue to let everybody know that Keeping Current Matters has a Real Talk section in their product where they have scripts. They have products there that can help you record these videos, and they have all of this content in there to make it easy for you. David's just being super humble, but man, they have a Ferrari of content and resources in Keeping Current Matters. I'm in it right now, and it's overwhelmingly fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, listen, I want to be cognizant of everybody's time. I can't thank you enough, David, for taking this time.
Absolutely. It's always fun to be on with you and be here.
I know, man. And listen, everybody out there, check out Keeping Current Matters if you're not already a member. And thank David in the comment section. Just let David know how much you appreciate him. Just give him a little heart there or something. Look at all these hearts and these. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, yeah. That's all right. I appreciate everybody being here. Thanks again, David. I will catch up with you soon. Hey guys, we will see you next week. We are planning to have another great topic next week. You'll be getting the email if you were on this, letting you know on the topic, and we'll be back here next Friday, same time. And we'll see you guys next week. Take care, everybody.
Take care.